everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Jams and D podcast where we spin the jams and spill the tea. And today, Jen and I are coming at you with two brand new reviews for two brand new records. We're going to be talking about the return of Harold Styleman, formerly of One Direction, the new album, Kiss All the Time, Disco, comma, occasionally, period, Shut Up. And also talking about the new Denzel Curry spearheaded project. Technically not Denzel Curry. It's the Scythe now, baby. And we're talking about strictly for the Scythe. But first, Jen, let's talk about everyone's favorite ex-boy band member, Harry Styles. Your
Now I'm
immediate
like going through
skepticism
my
is exactly the
Rolodex.
reaction I wanted to provoke.
I mean, that's probably correct. Ex-boy band member is probably most beloved ex-boy band member. I don't know. Is he above Timberlake?
I was about to say, like, he is certainly the Justin Timberlake of our time in the sense that
Absolutely.
he broke
Inarguably.
away. I personally am more fond of Niall's music on the whole these days, but it's inarguable that Harry is a pop star in a way that few people, gender notwithstanding, even are these days. But in terms of male performers, Harry has kind of been holding the torch alongside, like, I don't know, the fucking Weekend, who is orders of magnitude more successful than he is. So it's weird that we're even talking about Harry right now the way that we are, because, like, this should come back and then instantly be heralded as like, oh, pop music's back, fun music, we got this stuff, because that's what Harry Styles kind of built his solo catalog on being. The self-titled Harry Styles record being a big showcase of, like, very muscular, very safe instrumentation, but it is a songwritery album. It's him showing that he has the chops to keep going when divorced from his boy band roots. And then on Fine Line, we see that this guy has star potential too. It's not just that he's got, a good pen to the pad. He can also have hooks. He can also have smash hits. And he can get a little introspective with it too. And I still kind of like Fine Line a good deal. I think a lot of those pop hits hold up. And yeah, like it's not my favorite pop album in the world, but it signaled to me that Harry Styles was on an upward trajectory. And then that upward trajectory really plateaued with Harry's House because it was a really kind of safe, boring alternative album that just kind of felt like, hey, what if the Strokes were super duper boring? And when you had the Strokes come back in 2020 with an incredible album that sounded super great, I just had no real use for that in my life. Like, as it was, and maybe a couple of other songs selectively on that album, they may have gotten traction, they may have been good, but on the whole, Harry's House made me go, oh, maybe you're a lot less ambitious than I thought you were. And now we have this record, which you tell by the lead single, you can tell by the album art that Harry Styles wants to make dance music specifically. And I mean, that was a hot topic last year amongst Jen and I. We covered many dance pop, EDM records, and that was, generally speaking, the highlight of crop of records for the year, our sort of end of the year bonanza with all our albums, like all of the top
All of
tier
our like
entries.
dance music love toward the end of last year was so unprecedented for me. But I was
Yeah.
completely rapturous over the just pure amount of great boundary pushing dance music we were listening to last year.
And you know what? I don't think it's unreasonable to expect somebody like Harry Styles to notice a trend like that and then capitalize on it. And I don't necessarily mean that in an inherently derogatory or even a cynical way. I mean that in the sense that that's what the best pop stars do. They kind of feel out the playing field a little bit, and then they see what's hot, and then they see if they can bring themselves to it. And that's very much what I think Harry is trying to do here, because we're getting a lot of influence from dance music that isn't necessarily what's big right now or even what was big a decade ago. This to me signals that Harry Styles has been listening to a lot of LCD Sound System and a lot of Vampire Weekend. Like these two core influences are so important. Like specifically that kind of late 2000s, early 2010s sort of underground, semi-adjacent kind of New York scene where things were getting kind of lurid and kind of like very party centric and maybe even hedonistic. But there was kind of like an art school edge to all of it. Like, Vampire Weekend, they're the Ivy League pop stars is essentially what they are, and the Ivy League indie rockers. And Harry wants all of these things. We know he wants that alternative cred, but he also wants to be fucking Mick Jagger. He wants to be Bowie. He wants to be all these guys. And man, I hate that this album turned out to be not only exactly what I expected it to be based on the lead single, which didn't really do much for me, but I kind of hoped might be an outlier or just something that would, maybe stand on a bit of an island, perhaps, compared to some of the deep cuts, when in fact, Aperture is just kind of the modus operandi for this whole album, and boy, do I have some complicated, messy thoughts on it. But Jen, I want to know your history with Harry Styles. I know that like you may have been paying attention to his trajectory and may have even rooted for him, but you are not as connected to his previous music as say I am. So I have a feeling this was probably an even more difficult ask for you than it was for me.
So, I mean, the thing is that I remember around the same time that Harry's self-titled album was coming out, I wasn't listening to that record. I was listening to the 5 Seconds of Summer album that came out around the same time that all my friends liked a lot more.
We might
I'm
have to have
not.
Ree on here for a five sauce talk one day.
Oh my God. Shout out to Youngblood. That's a good album. That's a good album. Anyway, so going back to this period of being fond for One Direction and Five Sauce and their contemporaries, I've always had a little bit of a silver lining olive branch for those bands in that era because that was like the boy band era of when I was actually coming of age. And so
Same.
as I was burgeoning into an enjoyer of music, I was trying to give them like some critical thought and some benefit of the doubt to see like where
Yeah.
the zeitgeist was in this area of music that as a younger person, due to structural misogyny and whatever the hell else, I had never really given any of that stuff the time of day. And so I've always been fascinated by the direction that the respective members of One Direction went in after the band was disbanded. And Harry seemed to be the one that was heading the most straightforwardly to this kind of acclaimed rock star persona off of the back of Fine Line and this big Stevie Nicks cosign that I remember
Mm-hmm.
everybody going crazy for
Oh
was when
yeah.
she
Oh yeah.
talked about him in an interview and said the album was really good. And once I saw that, like, not just Harry himself, but like the fan base was reacting positively to that cosign, I felt like I had a much clearer idea of what Harry's whole musical project was trying to do. But I guess it never really made sense to me, the transition from wanting to be the next Stevie Nicks, Kate Bush, Peter Gabriel, more likely. I don't
Mhm.
really see how we got to the transition from him wanting to be the next Peter Gabriel to him wanting to be the next Matty Healy. And I don't know when this shift started, but you can hear it at a couple of points on this record. And this is what I think is interesting, is that when Harry promised a return to disco, I got very excited because I like that as a concept. I like the idea of the Harry Styles dance album. It's
New
in
disco is
keeping
in vogue right now too.
yeah, it's in keeping with like Renaissance and influences going into things
Jesse
like
Ware.
and things going into like Chapel Roan, Hemlock Springs, all taking influence from disco but using it to push the pop music landscape forward in a continuously new direction. But the thing is, I kind of wanted Harry to lean way more into pastiche. I thought that would have been way more interesting than what we got, which is ultimately this kind of odd hodgepodge of attempting to tribute to disco while really trying to fit everything into this kind of late 2000s, early 2010s alt rock shaped box where everything, it can't sound like disco. It has to actually sound like LCD Sound System, 1975, Rainbow Kitten Surprise, Wallows type stuff.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I didn't get around to listening to Aperture before the album came out just because I wanted to preserve the surprise of the record and I didn't know if there were going to be any other singles, and I made the right decision because Aperture is a song that really for me is the pinnacle of my opinion on Harry Styles, which is that when it gets over itself and starts doing what it actually wants to do, I really fucking like it. Because the second half of Aperture, when we get to the first chorus and the song really finds its groove and sense of momentum, I ended up really, really enjoying this track. But the more downbeat verses that sound like a more dull version of She Looked Like Me off the Magdalena Bay record, I was just like, well, what are we doing? What are we doing? And he just does not have the lyrical chops to go as baroque and abstract as he wants to do. Like he's going back and forth between there's this one couplet that I wanted to point attention to off of Aperture, where I was like, it's a perfect contrast of his unwillingness to do the simple stuff and his inability to go beyond it. And it's when we get I've no more tricks up my sleeve, game called Review the Player. And it's moments like this where I realize that, of course, Harry Styles wants to do more. Of course, he wants to have this really respectable pen and wants to construct these really intricate, really impressive songs. But I don't know, this is going to sound unelegant. I don't ever really look at disco song structure as a thing that I want to be impressed by. I see disco as something much more primal as a listening experience, where a
Fair.
disco song is built just as much for the first time you hear it as the 100th time, where the swing and groove has to really get at you. And none of these songs have the real swing and groove. And so I'm too distracted by trying to figure out what Harry is doing with his pen to really get in with the beats. And then the beats end up becoming underwhelming in the face of whatever big songwriting structure moment that he's trying to have with the vocal delivery on moments like the post chorus on Dance No More when he gets into this like MC respect your mother type stuff that he just does not earn at all with the overall tempo and dynamic that the song has had. Because I think that's the thing that's frustrated me the most about this album's mixing is that even when it's going for a more loose, reckless, upbeat, fun time, the music is just so damn quiet that I can't enjoy it because all I can hear is the singing. And so I don't even get the intended experience out of this album's more like turn your brain off, cut loose moments like Dance No More, when I should be embracing more of the disco occasionally part of the disco occasionally album. This is the part where I get to occasionally disco. Yes? You know, the title did not prepare me for just how little actual disco there is on this record.
Like almost none,
I
really.
feel like I need to just set everybody aside and say like approaching this as a disco album, which I went into doing, is a mistake. This is not a
Yes,
disco album.
100%.
This is an alternative rock album, which is very frustrating because I want to know what I'm getting into from, the packaging and the minimalism of the presentation, which is again attempting to evoke more minimalist moves that the largest pop stars have made to, get people talking about the music. Beyonce did with basically having no visual material accompanying Renaissance and going with this minimalist text on screen approach. Same with Brat, and he's doing the exact same fucking thing with the cover of this album and all the lyric videos where he's got the same like minimalist text on screen aesthetic. And so I understand what he wants this album to be for his career, but it's nowhere near as introspective or reckless as it needs to be to make the kind of statement that Brat or Renaissance is going to make for him. And so I ended up feeling mostly underwhelmed by a majority of this record. I appreciate that Harry contributes and that Harry can evoke and that Harry has love for these bands I've just talked about, right? It's really cool as a kid who was always more into that style of like alternative rock and pop music when I was around the age that Harry was first coming onto the scene, that now we've progressed through a number of years where we can pay tribute to acts like the 1975 and Rainbow Kitten Surprise, and it doesn't feel gauche or just like you're ripping somebody off. But you've got to try a little bit harder if this is the style of rock music that you're going to be evoking going forward. And you can't lie to me that that's what I'm going to be listening to with a majority of the presentation of the record and even some of the song conceits on this, which promise more of the straightforward disco homage than anything else, but still fall short. And so it's a weird case where I thought I was going to be able to praise Harry Styles for doing something unexpected and subverting even what he said he was setting out to do by all the marketing rollout of this record. But what this album says it is and what it secretly might be are frankly both underwhelming.
A lovely way of putting it. And in fact, if I may build on what you are saying, I know that often when these things are addressed by people who are engaging with criticism, you get the impression that sometimes it's like, some people will say, oh, this didn't really match the aesthetic of what it was projected to be. And some people will say, well, the music is what matters, like these things. And it's like, I don't think that that's indicative of what you're saying. The real thing that's indicative of what you're saying is that I feel like Harry Styles doesn't know what he wants to do because
Yeah.
he's doing all these things, and at the end of the day, I think that is the thing with him is that he wants to be all things to all people. He wants to be a pop star, but he also wants to be known for being a more classic Paul McCartney-esque songwriter or Brian Wilson-esque songwriter. But he also wants to have pop flair. He wants to be a sex symbol. He wants to be Bowie. He wants to be an innovator, but he also wants to be modern and alternative and hip. But he also wants the indie cred of days gone by. And I mean, the fastest way to get to my conclusion is that if you try to be all of these things, you end up being a half measure of all of them, jack of
You end
all
up with
trades.
something that Harry Styles describes himself as, which is squeaky clean fantasy. One of the best accidental self-owns
Uh,
in music in a long time, because that's
and
exactly what this album sounds like to me.
And now I have to elaborate on my position on this album, which, even judging by your rather harsh criticisms, I have to explain why I think I dislike even more. Because I don't understand the design of this album on like any level. Like
The sequencing on
forget
this is insane.
it is genuinely crazy. Like I have not felt more disconnected from dance music than when I first listened to What's Your Pleasure by Jessie Ware, my most notorious take of all time on a dance album I didn't like, where I discovered that really the reason I don't like that album is because I just don't like 80s house specifically. Like I love house music. 80s dance pop house, too clean, too cold, too clinical, not my thing. This, on the other hand, like I listen to this and I feel the exact same way in that every song plateaus early, does not oscillate, and but like you said, it's not even that this is adhering to disco sensibilities, but the structure and the attitude is the same, right? Is that once you hit the groove, the dancey part, the album is supposed to keep you moving. I mean, that's the structure of LCD Sound System songs and all of that. But man, I'm going to use a word and it's not used in the way that like people normally use it, and it's that I think this album is hideously overproduced. And usually when people say overproduced, they mean that it's like compressed. They mean that the mixes are really filled out. And it's like, this is a way an album can be overproduced. But the way this is overproduced, like these songs, as you kind of mentioned, a lot of them are like super quiet. I would even prefer if they were a little bit more compressed and dirty sounding just to add some texture. But yeah, they are too squeaky clean. They don't have a lot to them. But what I can't stand is just how every vocal and instrumental idea on this album is just lathered in so many goddamn effects. And I know I sound like I'm fucking Robert Christgau, but at the same time, it's like dance music, you need, again, what is the most important thing about a dance album? It's the groove. You have to be able to hit that combination of melody and rhythm to incentivize movement. And this album just has so much shit applied onto it that it never is able to dig into those grooves. It all like his voice is always the loudest thing there, but his voice is compressed and is at the top of the mix. And so it makes everything else feel weirdly secondary, which is just not how this stuff is supposed to work. You're supposed to kind of let the instrumentals, if anything, do more of the talking for you, especially on an album that, like, I'm sorry, there's no compelling lyrical ideas on here. And I say this as somebody who's just like, I don't need your life story in an album in order to be compelled. I don't even need something particularly emotional. I just need something compelling, or just to be convinced that you care what you're singing about. But the emotions in this album are so fleeting and impermanent that nothing lasts. Every single, perhaps like feeling inadequate, or not being a worthwhile like partner, or being able to give yourself over to somebody, these feelings evaporate the moment the lyrics that contain the ideas end. And I'm not sure where the synthesis is supposed to be. Like the Sudan Archives album, our album of the year from last year, was about seeking connection through other people, through physical acts. It had a synergy there that made the dance music feel even more alive. And on here, man, it's so dead on arrival. I can't name a single song where even like a conceit even leaps out at me. And what drives me nuts is that this is traditionally something Harry has been good at. Like he has, again, his songwriterly tendencies, even on albums like Fine Line. Again, he's got a song like Cherry, very emotionally involving, as it was. Also, a very good capturing of a moment in time for a lot of people that propelled that to success. This just doesn't like speak to anything. It's darker and it's murkier, and like I get why hearing it aesthetically would make you go like, "Oh yeah, I understand what he's going for." But the spirit is simply not there. Like the
Yeah.
soul is just not coming to me with this.
What should be the most emotional moments get dampened by these attempts at big crowd pleasing bridges, like on what's the third?
Season 2 Weight Loss is another one that comes to mind, where it's
Yeah,
like
that one, but
big
also like
gang vocals to account for the fact that we have no other ideas in this song. Ah, and it's like,
Ready, Steady, Go is kind of the same way, where
oh,
he's like where he's like naming names and saying all this, salacious stuff, but then he goes into this like really compressed, heavily vocally manipulated bridge. It's meant to be a live show staple to get everybody excited at the stadium, and I'm just like, but you've lost the entire lyrical conceit of what this song is supposed to be by doing that. And there's so many little moments like that on this where it's just like you're completely losing the plot by the middle of the song.
you're not accomplishing anything by underselling your delivery. And that's the other core, like, Achilles heel of this album, is that I do not find Harry compelling as a performer on this album at all. He is
I don't need
borderline
him to be
talk singing on
underselling it.
half of these.
Yeah, I don't need him to be underselling it. I don't need him to do this back of the bar acoustic rock crap like on Paint by Numbers. I don't need to hear
Ugh.
anything like that again coming out of this dude.
It's supposed to make you dance. Like you're good at hooks. Bring the hooks from Fine Line onto this album, and then maybe we're working with something. But it's just, again, it creates the sterile feeling of like you have these really linear song progressions that just do not really oscillate, and they maintain a specific level of weirdly underplayed energy. And whenever you need a kind of wrench thrown in the formula, it's big gang vocals that aren't even like mixed in a way that feels like celebratory. Like normally when that happens, again, it's like the second half of Dead by Sudan Archives last year. Like, that's the level of whoa you need to be going for in order to get people's attention. And this is like, it goes for euphoria. It goes for, living in the moment and relishing this hedonistic thing. And it's just, it's not there. And the lyrics, I mean, like, this is I don't know how to be more blatant than this is just somebody trying to write like James Murphy who's not James Murphy. It's somebody who is trying to do this weird affected kind of he's trying to write like James Murphy and he's trying to sing like Ezra Koenig. Like the whole album is just him doing that.
Ugh.
And frankly, I'm not even the biggest Vampire Weekend fan in the world, but that last album was fucking terrific and I would much rather be listening to that because what drives me even crazier is that clearly these things are influential. Brother, you can afford Rostam. Get him to produce this. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's fucking producing for goddamn Carly Rae Jepsen these days. You have resources and tools at your disposal to do a better job, but this makes me think like I genuinely doubt Harry's like artistic sensibilities now because he doesn't understand what makes this kind of music work.
Not to be completely cynical market brain about this, but I really do think this album is here just because it's been 3 years since the last one or whatever. And somebody told him that he's got to get back in the booth.
And I mean, he had a gimmick, like it's a sound, and it's different for him, but like different is not enough. I would almost prefer him do like a sellout album, like David Bowie's Let's Dance, because it's like he's still laying into like strengths that are otherwise not in other records, and it's like at least we have the poppy David Bowie album, and everybody loves that album. It's great. It's fucking got Young Americans on it. Not Young Americans. Let's Dance. Why did I say the title track from the wrong fucking album?
Anyway,
My brain is messed
uh,
up today, and I'm trying to think of more interesting artists to compare this to because this album gives me nothing.
here's how I want to end it. If you're gonna end your album with a song that is your most LCD sound system pastiche out of all of it, and you end up using the same synth tone as a Lights song from 15 years ago, I think we're a little bit behind on
Man,
on what we're trying to do here. Because man, when I realized that I was getting flashbacks to Siberia, the I'm talking like really really old Lights. Like most people that don't know, Lights is like one of the biggest synth pop artists in Canada, and I love her work, and she's really really great. And Harry Styles is ripping off her 15 years ago shit, and she's still out here making good music. She just put out a new album that's really good.
oh, well, shit, go listen to that then. It's certainly more worth your time than this is. Not only is this a thumbs down, I'm so much
Now
less.
I'm disappointed.
I
I'm not
am.
just like
I
I
have
understood,
less
or I at
faith
least got the
in male
feeling.
pop stars right now than I used to. Like, I mean, look, The Weeknd is making some wild fucking decisions with his creative arc in the last 5 years. But you know what? The music has uniformly been pretty great, and an album like this makes me want to revisit an album like Hurry Up Tomorrow, which I thought was a fucking mess and I want to be like, you know what? It was a mess, but it took risks. It tried. That's an album where I was just like, I feel like Abel Tesfaye gave, if anything, too much of a shit about this album. This, on the other hand, polar opposite. Harry is leaps and bounds behind his competition at this point.
Yeah, I didn't like this at all. It's very sad.
Well, to try and brighten the mood, let's us, known for our indie niche hipster music takes, eschew the indie niche hipster music that we just talked about, and instead
How is Harry Styles
proclaim
indie niche
well,
hipster
because that's what
music?
he's trying to do. But like now I get to come on here and present a slightly intellectual defense of some of the most head empty music released this year because boy howdy, the Scythe, the new album from the Denzel Curry formed supergroup, I guess, which is technically a mixtape that is called
Yep.
strictly for the Scythe. It is a 30-minute long release. And Denzel is, I believe I actually saw a breakdown of the amount of time each performer on this record holds relative to the others. And Denzel, like 30% of this album is essentially Denzel. And then the rest is everybody else. And that has led to this album getting a bit of a muted reception upon release because the way I am reading it is at least that people wanted a Denzel Curry album. This is not strictly just a Denzel Curry album. It is also two-thirds these other people. Even though Denzel has been pushing for working with more people, like every Curry project, like the last four of them at least, have had just an array of guest features and guest verses on there that have honestly really contributed to them being like fantastic projects and really versatile projects. And I find it funny that like we actually you were here when we reviewed Melt in My Eyes, See Your Future,
Yeah.
and it was weird because that was another, say it with me, kids, hip hop maturation album. It was just kind of before we noticed that the trend was really kind of gaining steam. So now that Denzel kind of went that way and did that, combined with the fact that the last thing he did was the sort of sequel to his underground mixtape of the Dirty South and just sort of amalgamating all of that into a release that we also didn't cover in the year that it was released. But I actually, while I was in, after I got out of the hospital, that album was like all I listened to for a little while because it put me in a really good mood because man, I love me some Southern hip hop. I love 3 6 Mafia. I love Outkast. I love the sound of the Dirty South. It is my ideal mode for hip hop, and Denzel Curry has been the guy kind of keeping it alive. Like we've seen how the sound has influenced things as popular as trap, for instance, and like there are no shortage of other people who use influences from it. But I don't think anyone is flying the flag for this aesthetic quite as strongly as Denzel is. And not to mention, not doing it as well as he does either. His production is faultless. Ever since Taboo, he's really never put a foot wrong in that department to me. He knows how to make this shit work. So the second I turned this on, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, this sounds like a
Literally from the
hi-fi
moment this
version of the
started, I
first 3
knew,
6
I
Mafia
knew,
album.
I knew it was gonna be your shit. Literally as soon as I hit play on it, because you just
Oh,
come in on this lovely,
mm,
dense, rich, textured, crunk anthem,
mm,
the Scythe, to introduce the concept of the band. And this is how you mix some gang vocals. Because
oh,
I've loved just going back and listening to the first minute of this song and just being able to like really tune my ears to each individual performer and the way that they
yes,
deliver the chorus. It sounds great. It's a really hard effect to describe without just getting really meticulous about what you're hearing, but I can tell
yeah,
it's a lot of work to get all these voices to sound distinct, especially with how loud all the instruments are in the mix as well. Because if I what I said about Harry not being willing to turn his instruments up, exact opposite is true here, where the instruments are loud and the vocals
big,
are trying to project over them a lot of times on this record, and it sounds great because it gives you exactly what you want out of a Kronk tribute like this. And really, for some reason, I got it in my head that the Scythe was strictly Denzel, Ferg, and Tia Corinne, which is honestly not a bad idea.
no,
But the Scythe encompasses some other performers as well. I believe the ones that are officially credited as members include BK the Rula,
yep,
Kenyatta, and a couple others. But those are the two, in addition to the three that I just mentioned, who pop up the most as vocalists on this album. And they have a handful of guests on this, like Smino, 454,
yep,
La Tyler, Rich the Kid. So this isn't just a Scythe album. This is a Scythe debut album with a handful of features on it. But what I found interesting about this as a kind of group ensemble project is that I was thinking back, I was trying to really rewind the clock and just be like, okay, so what kind of group is the Scythe exactly? What kind of dynamics in the personas is Denzel going for as kind of not even necessarily the master of the domain, but as the most famous person walking into this project? Is he going for like a D12 type of thing where it's going to be, Denzel Curry and the Scythe forever? Or is it more of like a Danger Doom type of thing where you're getting the people together, you're making this new moniker to represent it because you genuinely enjoy working with these people and you want to put out a separate project in regards to that. But I'm going to stake a pretty large claim here. This is a Brockhampton album.
Ooh, dig into that. I want to hear
This is a
this.
Brockhampton record. I think in the way that the Scythe is dealing with its persona, with its sense of persona for the group itself, where people who are credited not just in the lyrics but in the production of the album have been treated as official members in some of the marketing material for this, but also in their willingness this early on in their career to bring on guests and to have tracks where it can occasionally be no Denzel at all, and it can just be the other performers kind of piling on top of each other to create something entirely different for them. It reminded me of the Free Breakfast for Children mixtape that came out a couple years ago, actually, which was fronted by people like Gais Guevara and people in his
Yeah.
circle and people in the like New York, Boston, Philly trifecta rap scenes and like Baltimore who were wanting to put together a mixtape based off of like very prominent samples. So they've got stuff like 444 is on that album, and Three Man Weave by Injury Reserve is one of the beats on that record.
Mm.
And it's a lot more scrappy, DIY, independent. And so I was thinking about that while I was listening to this. I was like, well, is he doing Free Breakfast for Children? I don't know if he's in cahoots with people like Gais, even though I would certainly consider them peers at this point. But no, I really do think in the way that the performances are directed and in the way that the songs kind of bend around these performances occasionally. This ends up looking more like a Brockhampton album than anything else. And I think the quality that most directly evokes that is in the way that the songs are able to highlight the characteristics of one of the performers in particular as we move from track to track. Take Tam towards the end, which is really leaning on BK the Rula's unique sense of delivery, along with this amazing verse from Tia towards the end. Or take You Ain't Gotta Lie, which is really honing in on Denzel's more melodic sensibilities that he demonstrated on songs like X-Wing off of Melt My Eyes, that pairs him up with 454, who's a performer that's also in that more melodic direction to again make something different that speaks to the strengths of the people that are going to be appearing on the track. Or rewind it one more time to Hoopty, a song that feels entirely built around Smino's guest verse, which I honestly think is a great decision, even if I think Tia knocks him out of the water with her verse on this song. She is so good, man. I love Tia Kareen. I'm so glad that she's gotten in good with Denzel and that's been able to kind of raise her profile. I love on this song the very like Bruno Mars gang vocals on the like "What you saying, Tia?"
Oh,
over and over and over again as she's going
so
through her
good.
lines, and then she ends her verse with this interpolation of the opening of "Squabble Up," which is just
Yeah,
wild to
there's
me.
like five dedicated Kendrick references on here, and it's very charming. It's also kind of subtle too. It's not just him shouting it out, but it's like it's nice to see like we had Tyler pay respects on Chromacopia. We have Denzel doing it here. It's nice to see that hip hop, even when they're not working together, has a real sense of communion these days amongst, I mean, at least some of my faves anyway. But like I kind of love the Brockhampton comparison because honest to God, this does like spiritually it acts exactly the same way that the Saturation trilogy act, and that there's not really a reason for it existing other than it being a proof of concept for itself, for it being like this is a project that can still exist, guys. Because like again, I love Southern hip hop, but it is also its presence in modern music today is a little bit diluted. It's not exactly being embraced as wholeheartedly as, again, maybe something like the West Coast is on the most recent Kendrick project or the most recent Tyler project, even where they're doing these insane pop rap fusions of West Coast color. And it's like, I want something darker and grimier. And it's like, yeah, I have the horrorcore of Clipping, but like Clipping are like an alternative band for weirdos. They don't necessarily make they have a couple trap bangers, but they don't make albums full of trap bangers, is what I'm saying.
Even the
And
songs that Clipping made to be played in the club are not made to be played in the
no,
club.
nobody's gonna be like dancing to songs that are on Visions of Bodies Being Burned, but I mean that still doesn't mean I'm not gonna be spinning it because I am. But I want something like this to exist because it proves that something like this is viable in the first place. Because again, that 3-6 Mafia comparison, it's so strong in how these guys bounce off of each other, how they rely on their very unique deliveries to vary up the experience. And like, yeah, I understand kind of maybe being a little underwhelmed by just being like, yeah, Denzel is basically a third of this. But I mean, just pull back for a sec. Denzel has always been the guy to kind of uplift smaller rappers, and I really appreciate him taking a concerted effort to stand away from the spotlight because, I mean, it's like you said, I'm walking away from this a bona fide Tia Corine fan. Like, she's so fucking good on this project. She like makes it for me. I think she's fantastic. Like, I need her to have like her Doichi moment where she gets to like really go mainstream because I think she deserves it and I think she's got the chops for it. Like, I don't want her to get lost into the current, like, say, Rico Nasty or Flo Milli. It's just like, where are they? Come back. We miss you. And it's like, I kind of feel that way for a lot of the performers on here. Like BK the Ruler, I've heard on a couple of songs in the past, but like on here, his weird specific delivery that's like, it's so strange, but I'm so on board with it because it adds that particular tenor here. And Smino on here, even, I think is real. Like, again, they all really suit the material, but I love the sound of it because it's these big hypnotic beats, these swirling things that are just kind of supposed to get you in that head bobbing vibe. Like, they're not the most, the BPM isn't super duper high, but it's not supposed to be. Again, it's like we're getting the hi-fi version of the songs on the debut 3-6 Mafia, which is my favorite, and lets me know that Denzel did his homework, obviously. Not that I ever doubted that he wouldn't. But on here, there's not a lot of super big lyrical ideas, and even for Denzel, that is kind of a step in a different direction because you can take a look at some of his projects that maybe people don't even like as much or have like latched onto as much, like Zoo, for example, which coincidentally is actually my favorite Denzel Curry album. But Zoo is an album where he's blending West Coast hip hop and Southern hip hop, and it's his poppiest record by a mile. And it's still this really insightful look into where he grew up. And it's, again, only like 30 minutes long. And it's this tribute to all these artists that he loves and a sound that, created him and an environment that created him. And this is notably not as heady. It's not dealing with bigger ideas in that same way. But I don't know, man. Like, we're getting a lot of these hip hop maturation albums, and boy, howdy, do I think that's a great trend. Even if I don't love the album in question, it forces artists out of their comfort zone and it makes them make cool shit. That being said, there is still room for some kind of head empty, ratchet shit that, and look, all I ask for when it comes to this kind of stuff is being thoughtful when it comes to the construction and just being passionate. And the flows here are passionate. The performances are passionate. The sound is fantastic. No, this is not going to change your life. It is not going to illuminate any new perspectives, but it is an aesthetic exercise. It is a proof of concept. And honestly, I feel like this is just something that might be testing the waters to see what they could do later on because Denzel Curry is not an unambitious man. I feel like there is plenty of opportunity to take this and develop on it and, push from the saturation we've proved ourselves point into the iridescence, let's make music that's really about us. And like that's possible. And it's just not something that we see in this climate. Because I mean, again, Brockhampton are gone, and there's like nobody filling the power vacuum of the hip hop collective right now. Like, we thought for a while it might be group therapy, then they split up, and now there's nobody. But like, that's something that people want. They like the chemistry, they like people playing off of each other. And is it perfect here? I don't think so, but I don't really expect it to be. This is something where everybody is introducing themselves to you. It is supposed to ingratiate. And it's 30 minutes long. This is bite-sized for a reason. Denzel does not design his records like based on runtime in a pithy way. Like it's not short because it's not as good. It's short because it doesn't need to be any longer for what it is. I don't think that it is lacking. I think it is efficient. It is a project that knows the lane that it sticks in, and it does it really, really well. And I'm not trying to come across like I'm finger wagging at people who haven't been super hot on this project, even though I low-key kind of am. But like, I feel like people might be perhaps being a bit too harsh on this just because of a lot of factors that really don't have much to do with its actual identity. If you want something more substantial that sounds just like this, I direct you to the double album deluxe version that Denzel just dropped years prior, where he combined the two South Ultra South mixtapes together into a giant double album that has plenty of substantive material on there if you want to go down that route. Like, we are not lacking more thoughtful versions of Denzel's sound. So, yeah, him leaning into this, I don't see a problem with it. As long as you do it well, that's really all that matters. And the Scythe, man, I've listened to this shit so much this week. The second fucking half of this album, like the first half is very straight-laced, very much what you expect. And the second half, like, there are some twists and turns here sonically that I am fucking in love with. I love the fucking raucous energy of Hoopty, which feels like the Shake 88 of this album. And You Ain't Gotta Lie has this fantastic beat. And 10, oh man, what is even going on this song? Like this actually has dance music in it that works. Like holy fuck, this is a more effective dance track than anything Harry Styles made on that album. This gets me fucking moving. It gets the people going.
Yeah, that's the thing is that I've as I've gotten a little bit older, I've become much more thoughtful toward what gets me moving. And what gets you moving is often worth thinking about more than you probably do. So I like talking about records like this that are like, yeah, where does Head Empty come from exactly? And this album gives me a chance to do that. I like this one a lot. I like it a little bit less than King of the Mischievous South, just because I don't think there are as many strong song conceits on
Oh
this,
yeah,
where
I agree.
King of the Mischievous South felt like a workshop of an
Mm.
album where Denzel is testing out his ability to create certain types of songs, work with certain types of collaborators, and more often than not, that album succeeds and those songs succeed on an individual level. And so I find that album more interesting to revisit. Also, I think just because the wide variety of guests on that last project is just a sight to behold.
Oh yeah,
This, I kind of wish there were fewer features on this just because
I
to
kind of
have a
did too.
clear I want to have a clearer image of what the Scythe actually is and what its members are going to sound like and are going
Mm.
to produce. Like, I don't really care what Smino's going to add to this, even if I think he does okay.
Yeah.
Same with Juicy J, like
Hmm.
provides a worthy contribution, but I would much rather just hear what the people that I'm here for would do, you
And that
know?
trio is the strongest. Like Ferg, Tia, and Denzel are the people I walk away from this thinking about. Like again, not that the other contributions are bad. I really don't think they are like anything less than very, very good. But on here, I do think that some focus would really refine this and potentially make for a good sequel of sorts. And I want there to be. I want there to be more hip hop collectives. And the cool thing about the Scythe is that there is an aesthetic unity to them that groups like Brockhampton didn't have. And that's not bad on Brockhampton. The strength of them is that they did not bind themselves to any sound and thus could do anything they wanted. But they are picking a lane here, and that unity, that is a good thing. That's a good sound and it's a good style to play within. And I feel like it has merit, and I want to see it taken further by somebody of Denzel's stature. He really does feel like he's becoming like he is still obviously a performer in hip hop that feels like he's just inching ever closer to the top of that A tier based on how popular he is. But he is presenting himself as a bona fide industry cultural force, as a curator of the modern South. And you know what? That's really fucking cool. I'm glad he's doing that. And I'm glad projects like this are up to snuff and proving that he's worth his medal.
Yeah, I think this is a really great project, a really good start for a really great collaborative effort.
Hmm.
Because I'm telling you, I saw the vision from the beginning. Because I think about Hot One at least every day,
Mm.
and I just want to see these three people try to make a song that good again forever. And I don't care if they
Mhm.
ever get there, but just keep trying.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
But no, big thumbs up for the Scythe. Love this record.
It is great fun in a year where hip hop has been just out of the gate really fucking impressive. Give this a spin if maybe you want something that's a little bit different. A lot of the hip hop albums that have been great lately have been very heady. They've required a lot of mental legwork, and we love unpacking those. We love listening to them, but we know you got to chill out too. We know you got a vibe, and let me tell you, the vibe does not get more immaculate.
Let us know in the comments below what you think of these two records. Let us know what's coming out that you want us to cover next. And as always,
Rock over London, rock on Chicago, American Express. Don't leave home without it. Which, I mean, I guess is good advice.